Hey, everybody, and welcome to our second online Eureka lesson. This is Eureka 1.7. Just like yesterday, you want to make sure that number one, you are sitting with your team, and you also have the following materials: something to write with, your headphones, your math notebook, and you also want to have your Eureka Learn book because we're going to be using the Lesson 7 template. So for the two problems that we do together in the video, please make sure that you have your Lesson 7 template open and in front of you. Once you have those things with you, we can begin. Here is our learning target for today. I can round a given decimal to any place using place value understanding and a number line. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at a number and we're going to figure out how to round it to a couple of different place values. Let's take a look at question number 1. Okay, question 1 says, strategically decompose 155 using multiple units to round to the nearest 10 and nearest 100. So we want to round 155 to the nearest 10 and the nearest 100. And to do that, we're going to use the Lesson 7 template. So go ahead and fill in your Lesson 7 template the same way that I do. So we're going to look at the different ways that we can decompose 155. So I'm going to fill in 155 in my chart. I know that 155 has 100, 5 tens, and 5 ones. I also know that I can decompose it in a different way. Instead of using 100 and then 5 tens, I can also just write 15 tens and 5 ones. The last way that I can do it is not using the hundreds, not using the tens, and just using 155 ones. And that's going to help me round in this way. So let's start with rounding it to the nearest 10. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my tens column and I'm going to see which decomposition has the most tens. And I see that this decomposition has 15 tens, so I'm going to use that one. I'm going to draw a vertical number line. Please draw this with me in your notebook. And I see that 155 has 15 tens. So that's what I'm going to put on the bottom, 15 tens. And then at the top of the number line, I'm going to put one more than that. So 16 tens. So when I'm rounding to the nearest 10, it's going to go either to 15 tens or 16 tens, or to 150 or 160. My next step is to find the midpoint between those two spots. So I'm going to draw a line halfway. And I know that halfway between 15 tens and 16 tens is going to be 15 tens plus 5 ones, or 155. Now I look back at my original number, which was 155, and I'm going to place it on my number line. And I see that it's exactly the midpoint. So if my number is at the midpoint, I'm always going to round up. So to the nearest tens, 155 will round up to 160. Let's use the same strategy to round 155 to the nearest 100. So I'm going to go back to my template and I'm going to find the column that has the greatest number of hundreds, and it's this one. So I'm going to use this decomposition. So I'm going to draw my second number line. At the bottom, I'm going to put the number of hundreds that it has, which is 1. So I'm going to write 100. Then I'm going to go one higher than that to 200, or 200s. My next step is to find the midpoint and identify the midpoint. Halfway between 100 and 200s is 100 plus 5 tens, or 150. Now I'm going to go back to my number and I'm going to place it on this number line. I know that 155 is above 150, so it's going to go right about there. And if I'm above my midpoint, then again, I'm going to round up. So I know that when I round to the nearest hundreds place, 155 will round up to 200 because my number line has shown me that. We're going to use this template again for the next problem. So make sure that you either erase or that you have room next to it to work. Let's take a look at a slightly more challenging problem. This problem says, strategically decompose to around 4 and 381 thousandths to the nearest 10, 1, 10th, and 100th. So we're actually going to draw 4 number lines down here. So make sure that you have room in your notebook. Okay, first we are going to strategically decompose this number. So let's do that. 4 ones, 3 tenths, 8 hundredths, and 1 thousandth. Another way to decompose it would be, instead of 4 ones and 3 tenths, it would be 43 tenths, 8 hundredths, and 1 thousandth. I can also say it's going to be 438 hundredths, 438 hundredths, and 1 thousandth. And then the last way of looking at it is I could say that I have 4,381 thousandths. So 4,381 thousandths. Okay, so let's get started with our number lines. It says first to round it to the nearest 10. So I'm going to draw my number line. And I'm going to look in my tens column. And I actually don't have any tens. And that's 0 tens. So at the bottom, there's going to be 0 tens. And then up at the top, there's going to be 1 10. And then I'm going to mark my midpoint. My midpoint between 0 tens and 1 10 is going to be 0 tens plus 5 ones, or just 5. Then I'm going to mark this on the number line, and I know that 4 is less than 5, so it's going to go right about there. And it's going to round down to 0. So when I round 4 and 381 thousandths to the nearest 10, it's going to round down to 0. Let's draw our second number line. This time, it's asking us to round to the nearest ones place. How many ones does this number have? I can see from my column that it has 4. So I'm going to put 4 ones down here at the bottom. And I'm going to go 1 up, and at the top is going to be 5 ones. I'm going to find my midpoint, which is 4 ones plus 5 tenths. Then I'm going to look here. This is 4 ones and 3 tenths. 4 ones and 3 tenths is going to be below my midpoint of 4 ones and 5 tenths. So 4 ones and 3 tenths is going to be right about there. So when I round to the nearest ones place, it's going to round down to 4 ones. Let's keep using this strategy and draw our third number line to round to the nearest tenth. Looking at my column, I want to find the decomposition that has the most number of tenths, and that's this one. How many tenths does this number have? It has 43 tenths. One more than that is going to be 44 tenths. What's the midpoint going to be between 43 tenths and 44 tenths? It's going to be 43 tenths plus 5 hundredths. Now, I am looking. This has 43 tenths and 8 hundredths. So that's going to be greater than 43 tenths and 500. So it's going to be right about there. So I know that rounding to the nearest tenths place, it's going to round up to 44 tenths, or 4 and 4 tenths. We have one more to go, so let's draw our fourth number line. This time, we're going to be rounding to the nearest hundredth. Now, we're looking at our column that has the greatest number of hundredths. How many hundredths does this number have? It has 438 hundredths. So what number is going to go at the top of our number line? 439 hundredths. Our midpoint is going to be 438 hundredths and 5 thousandths. Just like that. If this midpoint has 5 thousandths, how many thousandths does our number have? It has 1 thousandth. So I know that it's going to be down here. Therefore, when rounding to the nearest hundredth, our number is going to round down to 438 hundredths, which looks like that. So you can see here how our template helps us to round to different place values. 0, 4, 4 4/10, or 4 38 hundredths. Use this strategy on your problem set and your exit ticket. When you're ready, you and your team can independently try your exit ticket. Bring me your exit ticket with your name on it when you are done. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you guys for our next lesson.